I, it's ridiculous.
Hi, this is Donna Maria Bordeaux with To Live For, and I have the great privilege to have here with me today the extraordinary and grace filled Joni Larlee. She's a certified hypnotherapist, a spiritual teacher and mentor, an energy vibrational healer, a writer, published author, singer, poet. You have so many gifts. It's amazing. How did you discover them, Joni?
Well, I kind of had a few of those gifts since I was a little girl. Uh, Later on in life, I began to become more aware. As I became more aware, I was able then to work on developing them more. And it kind of just happens as you start to remove the layers of who you are not, who you truly are shines through.
That's a perfect way to say it. So, what inspires you to use your gifts to help others in their healing and transformation?
I think because I am so sensitive to other people and their feelings, and I believe that that's an area that so many of us have early on been told that it was not okay to be expressing our emotions and our feelings. I became aware that I was feeling other people's feelings, not even thinking that this was possible. But as I started working with people, especially, I started to notice that I'd be feeling fine, and then someone would be sitting with me, I'd be working with them, and all of a sudden, my throat would hurt or some part of my body started to feel different. And so then I would ask them how they were doing, and they would start to tell me some of the things I was already feeling in my body. So that's how I began to realize, consciously anyway, became aware of that ability.
Did it ever scare you that you could feel these things?
No, it didn't. I was just concerned about holding on to some of these feelings, that I would take it on, because I did as a child. I was not obviously aware. I thought I was just being a hypochondriac.
Right.
Because when diphtheria was going around, I ended up having a sore throat, or someone had appendicitis issues, and I started having pain in that area in my body, and
You're
so
totally an empath, aren't you?
yes.
So how did you learn how to protect yourself, and what do you do to protect yourself in your life?
Well, early on, I certainly was taught about, putting a circle of love and protection around me, and other little things like cutting the cord, just passing my hand and just kind of separating myself. But I began to realize that if I start, cutting myself off and feeling that I'm having to protect myself, I was thinking that what am I protecting myself from? Because as time went on, I started to realize that if we're all one, in essence, obviously we're separate as human bodies, that in essence we are all one. If I sit in that understanding that there's nothing out there that can harm me, that everything begins and ends in consciousness, then that's where I have to go to protect myself and heal whatever the issue might be.
So how do you do that? How do you move
Well,
yourself?
meditation, of course, is one of the ways. I'm just able to be present. I a lot of times will say the presence of God or presence of spirit. I'll say that to myself. But I think that the more that we are able to become aware that the only place that we can feel safe is in the moment. because we're in the past. When we're in the past, it's not a safe place to be if you've had a difficult time back there.
Sure.
And in the future, we haven't gotten there yet, and we usually kind of repeat what happened in the past if we cannot learn to stay in the moment.
That makes perfect sense.
So it's becoming mindful, and there's so much happening about mindfulness right now. It's just being mindful from moment to moment. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, when obstacles come up in front of you, how do you spiritually deal with those?
Well, I've learned to be able to see the obstacle as a gift. Not in the moment, maybe, because I have to deal with whatever's happening with me internally. If I'm emotionally caught up in something, then I've learned to be able to deal with those emotions, and I do that using emotional freedom technique.
Sure.
The tapping, because you're tapping on the meridian points of the body. So you're allowing yourself to move through those feelings, actually really focusing on them, so that then you're able to release it as you're tapping on those points.
And my understanding is that it helps to defacilitate or calm the part of the brain. Can you tell me more about that? Is it the amygdala?
Yes.
That is stimulated?
When we are emotionally upset, for whatever reason, whether it be trauma or some other issue that arises, if it triggers you, you are immediately caught up in the emotion, and it is that the amygdala is the part of the brain that it's affecting. So we go into this fight or flight response or freeze.
Right.
Animals just are able to
shake it off.
We don't shake it off. We bury it vibrationally. We're talking about also energy and vibrational energy. And these feelings are emotionally sometimes overwhelming for people. So when we're focused on it, we begin to tap. As you tap, you're sending a message back to the brain and telling it that you're safe, everything is okay. And it kind of calms everything down so that you can eventually experience that same thing again, that same whatever feeling you're having.
Trigger, trauma.
And after the tapping, you're able to watch it and see it, like you're more of an observer and not so much, caught up in it.
A witness and not yet engaged in the melodrama.
Right. So
that's a very useful tool.
It's exceptional because it has gotten me through so much. It really has.
And now you teach that.
I do teach that at Greater Brunswick Physical Therapy. That's one of the places I'm teaching.
We're very, very blessed to have you teaching many different classes here at Greater Brunswick Physical Therapy. So how do you help others in accessing their authentic self and tap into their inner wisdom?
As we remove the obstacles, as we deal with the emotions and remove what no longer fits, because we've been living our lives thinking that we're just humans having these experiences and that we don't have power. We've been told that we don't have the power to make these changes. And for some reason or other, whether it's when we were very tiny, and actually it's about going back and dealing with the inner child, the issues that happened in that time. Children sometimes misunderstand. It's not always that the parents are abusive or people in their lives are abusive.
They can perceive a situation traumatically when it's not always meant to be.
And you hold that within you, those belief systems at the subconscious level. So let's say that you're making affirmations because you want to do better financially, let's say. And no matter how many affirmations you're making, it doesn't seem to be working. So we have to go back then and find out, where did this belief system that it was not okay for you to be prosperous or have all of the things that you want in life, you have to go back and...
And you believe that that can be cleared?
I know it can.
Sometimes it's referred to as experiencing the dark night of the soul, to move through our inward journey with purpose and intention. So you do believe that this is a necessary process towards transformation? And what are the rewards of doing our work and going into that pain versus aversion or attachment through addictions or other unhealthy behaviors?
That's a pretty important, long question. Let me see if I can answer that.
You were just talking about going back to those childhood issues, how that trauma can continue to impact the quality of life.
Well, it does, because what it does is it affects you physically with disease in the body. Emotionally, it's upsetting because you have unfinished business back there.
How do you think it manifests in disease and physical problems in the body when these issues are not dealt with?
Well, we're multidimensional beings, so we are not just what we look at in the mirror. We believed all of our lives that we're supposed to build a very strong ego, a healthy ego. And that's good, that's a part of the journey. But there comes a time when all of those tools don't work anymore. And you have to start paying attention, because 90% of your mind is the subconscious mind, are the belief systems you held throughout your life.
Right.
That started in the past as a child. And so it's important to understand that it's the emotion, it's the energy of the emotion, energy and motion, that has stayed in the cells of your body as memory impressions. So it's important to go back and retrieve. I think, is it the Native American, where they go back and do soul retrieval?
Right.
It's the same kind of a thing where you're,
Yes.
going back and reclaiming parts of your soul.
Sometimes I say to patients, if they don't think there's any connection between the emotion, the mind, and the body, and I say, if you're physically stressed about something, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your muscles tense up.
Mm-hmm.
There's very real physical response and chemical reaction.
Yes.
Cortisol being released from the brain, a whole cascade of negative effects on the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's I believe, a combination of both very real physiological response in the body to stress,
Yes.
and the energetic block, like you said, of that cellular memory that's going to add to the density in the area and compress nerves and disc and so forth, and cause physical problems.
Like I said earlier, that we've not given much attention to the emotional body. Before anything can happen at the physical level, it has to be happening at a deeper level.
To truly be a change.
Anything, any manifestation, regardless, it has to be happening in consciousness first. Consciousness, for me, means the sum total of everything that is, including spirit or God. And so if we're not in alignment with our soul, I usually talk about soul quite a bit, because for me, you asked the question earlier, how do I change this? I go to a level of soul and try to see the larger picture about something, so it changes just everything. To see it only from the ego mind is just like having a piece of pie and not dealing with the whole pie.
So limiting.
Yes, it's very limiting. So it's important to understand that when you see the larger picture, you can have compassion where there might have been anger about a situation. You have an understanding that another person might be in terrible pain. Maybe their understanding of life in general is limited. And what they do is they project all of that onto you, and you become a victim.
And part of the mind, Michael Singer wrote an amazing book. And he says we have this roommate in our brain. It's called The Untethered Soul, his book, and that we have this roommate in our brain that's always telling us what to do. And would you really have that voice inside your head as a best friend? And no. And that we can retrain that. So many people live according to what their mind or the programming in the family is, what they think they should do, rather than really coming up from a place, like you said, from the soul and the heart, and what's going to light you up.
There are so many layers to spiritual growth. Just growth in general, when you think about it, just your physical life. There are many stages that we go through. It's the same thing when we're going through our spiritual development. We tend to want to use the same ways that we've always used because it feels safe or it's something we know.
Familiar.
And also, we have a conceptual idea about how things are supposed to be. One of the things that I work on as well is the shadow side of our nature. It is not a bad thing necessarily. And I think when we were talking yesterday, I mentioned that the lotus blossom is born out of the mud.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with our lives in general. As we begin to own and become more whole, we become more whole, and we start to own all of who we are. As human beings, we've come in here dual in nature, so there's this dance of opposites that happens throughout our lifetime. If we keep projecting everything outside of ourselves and give it to someone else, then we keep bringing that back into our lives.
So by doing our deep inner work, what are the rewards of that?
Well, the rewards is freedom. Freedom to be who you truly are. Not who you think you should be, or who you thought you should be, or what someone told you should be. And that's not always easy when you respect or care for or love, say, parents, teachers, just people in general that you've admired. One of the hardest things through this whole journey is disillusionment. You know, when I was told there was no Santa Claus, I was devastated. And it's the same kind of thing. They had to make me believe one more year that there was a Santa Claus, and they did that for me. But I had to let go of that at some point in my life. You know, I had to say, oh, there's no Santa Claus. 16 or 17 years old. No, I think the hardest part is having to see things as they truly are. And I think by becoming more mindful from moment to moment as to what we're doing, what our feelings are, what's happening around us, how do we relate to that? Am I truly who I think I am? What do I have to do to change things in my life? The thing about what I've learned is that, and this is the most important part probably, I had to go from trying to fix me to accepting who I truly am.
Those are beautiful words.
You know? Because it's not about fixing. I'm not broken. I believed I was, so as long as I believe I am, then yeah, there's things I have to learn. I did it intellectually at first, The hardest part of this journey is beginning to visualize
Right.
or internalize everything
Really
that you've
painful and
learned.
scary.
Yeah, and everything you've learned intellectually is where you have to begin to understand that we all have the same feelings, just different stories. And so when I'm working with emotional issues or feelings with people, I'm able to resonate because I've cleared a lot of what I've had, what I experienced in my life. And so I can go there with them. I'm not afraid of that. I've had some challenges along the way, yes. But you asked, what are the rewards other than freedom, is to know that I'm able to relate to another soul and to be with them while they're going through their grief or their pain for whatever reason.
It's part of my prayers every day.
Yes, yeah.
So, how do you define intuition, and how can people be in touch with their own intuition instead of what they hear other people saying they should do? How can they find and trust their own intuition that guides them to be their highest self?
Well, the word trust is very significant. If you've grown up in a family where there's been a lot of substance abuse or a lot of dysfunction with any other kind of a process addiction, there's a lot of rules and regulations. And so sometimes you learn to distrust people around you. And you've learned to distrust yourself because you were not given that didn't get mirrored back to you, that you were okay.
So how does one rise above that?
I'll go back to, as you remove all of what stands in the way, which means all of the beliefs that you had that no longer apply, then that automatically happens. It's not a matter of trying to become more spiritual. You already are.
So if you were going to name 3 of your top favorite healing modalities to remove the blocks, what do you say?
I have to acknowledge that the blocks have started in my mind first.
Right.
There's a belief that
Right.
there are blocks. And originally I did what everyone else had taught me, is that, you circle yourself with love and protection. There are little things that you can do at that level, but I think, again, the more you focus on the fact that you're more than your body, more than your mind, more than your emotions, that you are one with Spirit, one with God, that begins to shine through. You don't have to to try to become something that you already are, but you have to acknowledge who you aren't. Again, I'm going back to the same thing over and over again, because it's letting go of the beliefs. And the only way you can do that is to go within, do some, clearing that way, working with someone that can help you to do that, or read, or have practices like meditation and yoga. And
meditation is so powerful.
Yes.
And for me, it calms me and centers me and connects me more closely with God, with divine, with myself, more present. I'm more present with others, more clarity, more grace. It's so powerful.
it's your quiet time to go within. And intuition, to me, is my connection with God, or Spirit, or universal mind. There's so many names that people give that. There's a sense of okayness always. as you breathe. So breathing is very important.
Definitely.
Breath, focusing on breath. I guess I'm not as, I kind of see the world from the inside out instead of the other way around. So I think that more than anything, I like to be able to let people know that as you drop the judgments
Right.
about life and about everything out there,
Right.
I always, what I went through, most of what I went through, is I started to bring everything home, brought it back to myself, and asked myself maybe, how am I feeling about this?
Right.
Why is this making me frightened, or why is this person making me feel these feelings that I'm feeling?
Right.
And I had to always bring it back home to myself and say, because that's what I am believing. That's what are they bringing up in me? And I have to get in touch with that belief system.
Instead of having a knee-jerk reaction to a situation with what you're recommending, then one can really reflect, like you said, on where that's coming from and have a deeper understanding and a deeper healing and respond more to situations more purposefully and mindfully, like you said earlier. I have one final question. So, what are your words of wisdom and hope to people of all ages and how they can discover and live true to their authentic selves?
Depending on what stage they're in life, like I said earlier, there's a time for all things in life. I had written a poem about
I
time.
think that writing beautifully summarizes this question. So would you be willing to read
The poem?
one of your writings that's on your website? It's The Butterfly.
Oh, yes.
That would be
okay?
perfect.
Okay. Dear, I forgot glasses.
No worries.
Okay, good. You can delete that. Through all of this is the other thing I didn't say, is that it's very important. Writing became very important to me. It was a way for me to connect and to just write whatever my feelings were. It was a really wonderful way to heal. So I wrote a lot of poetry as well. The poems that I'm sharing, that I wrote, was that the poems that I'm sharing with you are the result of a gift I was given during the transformational process of my spiritual journey into wholeness. My wish now is that as I share parts of my journey with you through my writing, you will feel inspired and supported and know that you are not alone as you explore the landscapes of your inner world. What helped me through many years of doubts, fear, and self-recrimination was my ability to relate to other courageous souls who shared their stories on the path of self-awareness. There are many peaks and valleys along the way, and each shift in consciousness and new insight sets me free to be all that I could be. And it allowed me to see a larger picture, to perceive life through new eyes and with a depth of understanding that had not been there before. We are emerging butterflies, and our journey into wholeness begins in the darkness of the womb or chrysalis. In essence, we already are the butterflies we're trying to become, and our time on earth is a learning center that helps us to awaken to our true potential, our divine nature, and transcends all limitations of our personal belief systems. I believe that there is a sacred space within us, a place of love and understanding that has an overview of our lives and its challenges, and who knows how to move through them clearly and effortlessly. Whether it's about health, relationships, or finances, we are all affected internally and externally by how we perceive and respond to life in general. In order to see the bigger picture, we must move beyond our limited beliefs and go to a higher place in consciousness, a place called soul, that we may reclaim our divine inheritance as creative beings in tune with the that we may reclaim our divine inheritance as creative beings in tune with the infinite source of all of life. When we are resonating with our soul energy, we are able to drop our worm's eye view of our experiences and begin to see the world through new eyes. And that's what I'd like to really share.
Beautifully, beautifully expressed, Joni. Thank you for sharing that. And
You're welcome.
that and many other of Joni's writings can also be found on her website, www.mypassionation.com. She is a published writer, professional singer, songwriter. She has 2 CDs that she's released called Dissolving the Wall of Anger and Sleep. And these can be purchased at CD Baby, Amazon, and iTunes.
And that is also, those are guided imagery meditations.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing yourself today.
Okay.
Bless you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.